I'm the president of the College Republican. I'd like to thank you for today's lecture, Free Speech and Crisis by Milo Yiannopoulos. I'd also like to thank several people for helping us put this on really quickly. The Intercollegiate Studies Institute helped fund our wonderful security staff that is surrounding the room. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Chornick in the Wilmington Union office. She helped us get through all the paperwork that went into this. It was a really big hassle, but we managed to get it through in the end. And finally, University of Pittsburgh for ignoring all of the petty protests and finally managing to bring Milo here. So give it up to I would like to clarify that this is a free speech event. There will be a brief talk by Milo, followed by a Q&A session. During the Q&A session, anyone is welcome to speak. We'll be walking around with 2 microphones, and we'll just be handing it out, holding up to people. They can ask a question to Milo, and you can say or ask whatever you'd like. However, any heckles or outbursts during the actual presentation will not be tolerated. You will be escorted out of the room, and the Pitt College Republicans will personally donate $5 to Milo Yiannopoulos' privilege grant. It's important to understand why we brought Milo here today. It's not that we agree with, any one specific topic that we need to bring him here for, or we agree with everything that he says, but rather it's the fact that his opinions, while controversial, deserve to be heard, and on a campus such as Pitt, with such history and esteem, we deserve to be able to say whatever we want, whenever we want, and be able to experiment with any ideas or literature or speakers that we would like. This is a college campus, and we deserve to have free speech and freedom of expression. Without further ado, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Good morning, I'm here. Thank you very much for that lukewarm welcome. I'm Milo Yiannopoulos. I am journalism's leading dangerous faggot. What that means is that though a gay man, I don't believe that the state should take 75% of my earnings and use it to fund feminist dance troupes and Black Lives Matter activism and all manner of other things that I don't like. I'm not a fan of socialised healthcare. I don't like all sorts of things that gay people are supposed to believe in order to gay properly. I don't gay properly. Now, my ex-boyfriends will tell you a slightly different story. They think I gay very well. But the progressive left, which has become a sort of menace on university campuses, think I gay very badly. One of the reasons for that is that we live in a society in which it's become quite difficult to tell the truth. We live particularly in a climate in the media and academia in this country in which what we on the internet call hate facts can get you into rather a lot of trouble. Hate facts are factual statements that somebody somewhere would rather you didn't know or rather you didn't talk about. For instance, the wage gap is bollocks, and there's no campus rape culture, which we'll get to in a minute. Alright, so because some people are offended by the truth, and because I'm a natural contrarian, I've taken it upon myself to go through life as offensively as possible, on the basis that the only appropriate response to outrage culture is to be outrageous. We'll get to some of those things in a minute, but most of all what I want to talk to you about today is the resurgence of something in the 90s, your parents will remember, as political correctness. And political correctness is a sort of lying designed to save people's feelings. And the reason it's come back is that although the argument against political correctness in the 1990s, where we sort of didn't say the truth, we stepped over the boundaries of etiquette and politeness and into sort of outright dishonesty in order to save some people's feelings. although the argument was sort of won against political correctness, the people who believed in it still had tenure at universities, still were lecturers, and they remain in posts today. There's been a resurgence of political correctness. We are now expected to lie, and most journalists will lie to you knowingly. They do it on purpose, they do it all day, they do it every day, about things that actually matter quite a lot. They lie to you about the relationship between men and women. They lie to you about statistics and stoke up racial discontent. They lie to you about all sorts of things. I'm not going to lie to you about any of those things this evening. But what I am going to talk to you about are some of the risks inherent in enforcing dishonesty on people to save feelings. Now, the progressive left, which is the most powerful political force on your campus and on probably every campus, perhaps Hillsdale, which sounds excellent. I haven't been to Hillsdale. Is that it? What is that? Are you clicking me? Is that an alternative to applause? Is that feminist clicking? Tell me, what was that?
It was snaps.
It was snaps.
Oh, snaps.
Oh, it was snaps. Oh, sorry. Do you know that you're not supposed to clap anymore because apparently it triggers people? It might trigger somebody who's a victim of domestic violence. So you're not supposed to clap anymore. Some of you will know, if you have an internet connection, that I have concocted a range of alternatives to clapping, specifically for feminist conferences. So feminist jazz hands, if you don't want to upset anybody. And for a speaker you particularly like, you can use feminist pizzazz hands. Anyway, there's loads of them. All right, look. Here's the thing. What we're running up against in universities is a climate in which telling certain facts has become dangerous. And the climate that's on American universities, and in Canadian universities, and in British universities is spreading outside the academy into the media, because nobody has ever told these people no, and even into the legal system. Has anyone here heard of a man called Gregory Allen Elliott? A couple of people. Good. Well-educated people have heard of this man. This man was put on criminal trial in Canada for disagreeing with and mocking feminists on the internet. And that was really the extent of his crimes. He took the piss out of them, as anybody with half a brain and a sense of humour would, because they're ridiculous. And he was put on criminal trial in Canada because that country is so far down the road of political correctness that merely saying facts or ridiculing somebody is now cause for arrest. I read that, I haven't been back to Europe for a while because it's awful, but I read that in Scotland, somebody has been arrested for Facebook posts about immigrants. And nobody will tell us what these Facebook posts are, but he's been arrested, and the police have specifically said, we're going to be cracking down on offensiveness. I don't remember that being passed as a law. I don't remember that being illegal, like upsetting people. But apparently now it is. And Gregory Allen Elliott was, he had his life ruined. It cost him in excess of $100,000. He was on trial for years, but for years he was, I think it was for years, about 2 years, he wasn't allowed to use the internet. Now the same left that tells us this internet is a human right. They banned him from Twitter and threatened to take his liberty away because he made jokes on the internet. Now that's serious stuff, and that's coming from the universities. So it's important that we resist this stuff. Yes, what should we talk about? So I want to be relatively brief because I know we've got so many questions and people come to this stuff for the Q&A. So I'm going to be relatively brief. Let's talk a little bit about, does anybody see the videos of what happened to me at Rutgers? Standing in front of a room, looking fantastic, being very sensible, very funny, and I say something like, you know, it would be nice if universities were places of learning with free and open access to knowledge and people were exposed to different points of view. The response from feminists to this was to leap up, smear themselves with fake blood and shout, "This man preaches hatred!" This is the state of the progressive left now, and it's a sort of weird coalition of people. They're very much the minority, they're very weird people. Does anybody know any social justice warriors? Do you have any social justice warriors in the hall? Does anyone want to identify one of you? one idiot. Anybody? Some other idiots over here. Okay. Let's interrogate some of the crazy things that these people believe. Do any of you believe that women are paid less than men for the same work?
Yes.
Right. Very dumb. Why you believe that. You're told it by the media, you're told it by your professors. It is a sort of socially appropriate thing to say.
You are the media!
Who wants to be the guy who...
2, 4, 6, 8, 7,
Daddy supporters in the audience. You hear all these things, truth and justice always prevails, the Daddy supporters are always louder and more brilliant than the rest. Particularly strong contingent here. So what I was going to say before they made a fuss and left, because of course that's what you do when you don't have arguments, rather than running the danger of sticking around for the Q&A where I might ask you questions back, by far the best thing to do is to chant and be an idiot and wander out. So I noticed as soon as I ask questions of the people in the audience, they start to leave quite quickly. All right, let's jump onto a few things. I mean, why am I considered dangerous? Well, I don't say very nice things about lesbians. But I like to think that most of the things I say about lesbians, aside from the sort of pleasure cruises and cat piss and knitting needles, all of which are horrible generalizations, which I should be ashamed of, most of the things I say actually are in support of women. I don't want women to get drawn into lesbianism. That is, of course, how lesbianism works. But women have a much more malleable sexuality than men do. They're much more likely to have relationships with women, relationships with men. I don't want to get drawn into lesbianism for a variety of reasons. The lesbian obesity epidemic is one of them. The federal government spent $3 million last year working out why you're all so fat. I mean, they spend the money on these things, not me. There's, of course, the domestic violence epidemic. Do you know about this? Lesbian domestic violence epidemic. I wrote about it very sensitively last year in a column titled Attack of the Killer Dykes. They beat the shit out of each other. And of course, the last thing, and this is something we should talk about in the Q&A, campus rape culture. There is only one respect in which there is a serious culture of rape on campuses, and I've sort of given you the answer already, but you know what it is? It's lesbians. When you look at the Department of Justice statistics, you see people like me actually look at numbers rather than just say we're offended or apply, sort of appeal to grievance culture or some other sort of bollocks to make ourselves feel better and to make other people feel bad. Some of us actually look at the data, look at the numbers. When you do that, the Department of Justice statistics suggest that's what they say, that the women who identify themselves as victims of sexual assault vastly disproportionately identify as lesbians. Now, there's only two explanations for this. One is that straight men are specifically going out and seeking lesbians to sexually abuse, which seems unlikely given how they look. The other explanation is that lesbians are raping each other at almost unprecedented rates, at rates similar to the Congo, where rape is used as a weapon of war. And I'll restart the joke from earlier because it was great. It suggests that the only consent that lesbians are familiar with is co-signing at the Subaru dealership. If there is a campus rape culture, it is not a problem of male on female crime. Rapes have been going down for 30 years. The campus is the safest place for a young woman to be. It's a lesbian. Anyway, you're not supposed to talk about this stuff. It's not nice. It's not polite. But if you don't talk about it, you can't fix it. Now, in the ignorance of the left, well, actually, no, hang on a second. Let's talk about lesbians. We've gone feminism. Feminism is mental. It has gone completely mad. We should be very proud in the West of having given women full and equal access to our institutions, to places of learning, to the workforce. And of course, women do get paid the same when they go into the workforce. We should be very proud of our accomplishments, because most of the world hasn't done that. Did I get some water? Sorry. Most of the world hasn't done that. But feminists would like you to believe that there is a sort of sinister patriarchal superstructure sitting atop of society designed to keep women down. Well, it simply isn't true. The numbers don't bear it out, the college admissions don't bear it out, the biases towards women don't bear it out. Thank you. If I drink from this, am I going to catch poor? There's this a socialist idea of a water bottle. You can't get into it, you can't get out of it, it looks filthy, it's fucking useless. Thanks, cunt. Right, let's get on with the Q&A and see if we've got through what we can recently accomplish. I do still need some water. Thank you for that. There's a what? No, nice. Let's get on to the Q&A. The one thing I would say is this. The reason something...
Is this on?
It's fine. I don't care if you're diseased. I quite like AIDS. All that attention and weight loss sound fantastic.
Raise your hand if you would like to ask a question.
It's not a death sentence anymore.
Right, we're going to get on to Q&A. The last thing I'd like to say is it matters. Free speech matters because you are an institution of learning. Free speech matters because you are routinely being denied the opportunity to hear other arguments. If you're a student in almost any university in this country, you will have the massed ranks of professors up against you who really aren't interested in other points of view. They're not interested in conservatism, but this isn't even about left and right, because there is a new political realignment happening at the moment, and I find it very fascinating, and it is represented by Trump and that man. But I don't mind him, because the most interesting distinction between people these days is not left and right. It used to be, it certainly was at least as recently as the 90s, the most interesting distinction these days is between people who want to tell you what to do and people who will leave you alone. Between authoritarians and libertarians. I'm a libertarian, I think people are... I believe that the world works best when we are left to our own devices. I don't think the world works well when feminists are telling us what movies we can watch, when socialist activists are telling us which books are problematic, which video games you're allowed to play. I think the world works best when people have full, free, open access to everything that has been thought and said. I believe that the world works best when the power is with you, and not with unelected, unaccountable, well-meaning, middle-class, well-fed wankers who think that their own artistic and moral preferences shouldn't just be advertised but should be enforced on you. I don't believe in these things. And the problem of political correctness is an outgrowth of a belief that it is somehow justified to police what other people consume. We had some idiot protesters here today, and they always are here, and I did a rough head count, and I think they've earned about $100 for the privilege grant. I'm going to double that and give $200 to Trump as well. This is the thing, when you have a fact-based career, you earn a lot more money. Anyway, we can wrap up.
What? Why?
What did I say?
You were absolutely right.
No, I wasn't having a go at you. I was having a go at the feminists because they're going to go whine for a living for Vox and BuzzFeed and Gawker and prostrate themselves before the altar of social justice in exchange for $28,000 a year and a hand job. No, I like evidence because then I get to wear Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Dior and Ralph Lauren and fuck whoever I want. It's great being libertarian. Right, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to take questions, and there's loads of stuff we didn't get to, and I'm rambling. So let's go straight to questions. I think there's a microphone. I'm going to stay here and try and be as interesting as possible for as long as I can bear it. So please, I welcome your questions. Thank you very much.
I'm going to hold the microphone. Please do not take it from me.
So I saw you prefer Bernie over Hillary, and I was wondering why it's more important to go against the establishment rather than support capitalism.
Well, because the establishment is the root of all evil. I mean, I might be a... Sorry.
I'm not a Rubio, but...
You see Daddy, by the way, so Rubio's all like, yeah, in the debate. And Trump the next day just comes up on stage, pours a bottle of water and says, look, it's Rubio! Right. I don't mind too much which kind of establishment people hate, because I hate all of them. I'm not a fan, though I have Catholic leanings, I'm not a fan of the religious right when it polices culture, and when it blames video games and rock music for school shootings. That's bollocks. I also don't like when the progressive left does it, when it says that video games and movies can contribute to an atmosphere of sexism or an atmosphere of violence. These sort of nebulous words. We're never really sure, the harm is never measurable, they never explain to us just how this is going to be hurtful. But they suggest that if you watch the wrong movies or play the wrong games, you're going to end up being a rapist or a killer or whatever. I mean, this is all bollocks. I don't want people policing what I get before I get it. I don't want there to be an approved list of what I can consume. And I also think it's very clear that the establishment on both sides of the aisle has completely failed to run the economy, failed to run society, failed to do anything. And far before I would vote for a terrifying robotic crook, I'll go for the crazy old man. Because as batshit insane as Sanders is, and he is completely insane, he does at least do the same thing that Daddy does, which is welcome in an era of terror and panic for the Republican and the Democratic parties. I want them both to suffer, I want them both to be blown apart, and I want a new political realignment based on a libertarian majority that will be in government forever, whose only real belief is, you should leave me alone to do what the fuck I want. Now, I don't entirely believe in, I'm not entirely sold on the libertarian project. I think too often they have nothing to say outside of weed, Bitcoin and hacking. But I certainly wouldn't want Rand Paul as president because I just can't look at that hair every day. But I do think that at least cultural libertarianism is probably the most important movement and probably the most exciting movement, youth movement, of the last 40 years. And it is on the rise. I mean, let's be completely clear. Many of you are here because you, like me, are frustrated with other people trying to tell you what to do, what you can read, what you can say, and how you can say it. To those people, my message is go fuck yourself. We will say what we want, do what we want, act how we like, watch what we want, and have whatever opinions we want. And just because somebody is black, or a woman, or gay, does not give you the right to call them an internalized misogynist, or an Uncle Tom, or, are you a self-loathing homosexual? Fuck you guys. I don't believe in voting with body parts, skin colour, or sexuality. It's insane. I just want to be left alone. I think the establishment on both sides perpetuates these problems where people are expected to vote with some aspect of their biography. Let's get another question. We have a question right here.
Hi, Mr. Yiannopoulos. Thanks for coming here, and thanks for the Republicans for having us.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I even voted for Nader.
Wow.
So we've got a wonderful mix of people here. My question is about you being a tech editor. What's going on in the tech industry right now? R just had one of its variables changed because it was an integer that gave the head of a cube to another object. And PHP has a code of conduct.
Wait, it was removed because it gave head to the wrong person?
Yes, I give
yes.
it.
know,
It's called I Get Paid.
I was thrown out of Scouts for the same reason.
Yeah. That's a bug report. That's a bug report. Code of conduct in PHP.
Yeah, no, I understand the question. Interestingly,
What are the alternatives on top of that? When you,
well,
what do we do?
the tech industry is an industry of STEM and business graduates that is reported on and talked about by social science and literature graduates with predictably horrific consequences. Most technology journalists are better able to read tea leaves than a balance sheet. They don't understand about business, they don't understand about technology. What they want to do is advertise their own moral virtue, tell you what good people they are. They don't really understand the technology that they're reporting on. And it's a weird thing. I mean, progressives, feminists, Black Lives Matter activists, they're all bullies. They pick on weak, easy targets. They go on university campuses for meek, nice, middle-class white people who've got a bit of white middle-class guilt and basically, you know, quite nice people. And if you tell them, you are a hateful, terrible person, their response when they go, fuck yourself, their response will be, God, really, am I? And they sort of bamboozled and confused. Now, many of the people who work in the tech industry, and it's one of the reasons there's a vast overrepresentation of gays and transgender people who work in technology companies, it attracts marginalized personalities because very often very brilliant people do have, their brains work slightly differently. And some of you in the audience will be familiar with, you know, sort of the male autism double-edged sword. It can make you brilliant, but it also means it's absolutely horrific to try and chat anybody up. Technology companies attract these kinds of people, but they often attract these kinds of people because they're meritocracies from all across society. And what you've got in the tech reporting industry and in the sort of feminist movements in Silicon Valley is a very small group of very privileged people. Normally white women and white middle-class women are the most privileged group ever to have existed in our species. Pontificating and lecturing others on microaggressions and all sorts of other ridiculous horseshit. The tech industry is in a bit of a problem here. It's in a bit of a bind. Any platform business that has something to do with publishing, like Twitter or Facebook, has been completely taken over now. And taken over not just by people with batty politics, but by people who believe that the government is better at telling us what was teamed up with Angela Merkel in Germany to censor discussion of the immigrant crisis. Perfectly respectable, normal, mainstream opinions in Germany are now beyond the pale. They will be removed from Facebook within 24 hours if somebody complains about them, and even in some cases if nobody has. Facebook is now going all in with governments to decide what we can say and what we can't. Many of these Silicon Valley companies are essentially fucked for precisely that reason, so they will fail on their own. GitHub is on the way. Twitter is obviously fucked. Facebook will take longer to go because they make more money, but ultimately they have to pick a side in the free speech wars. And being against free speech is always bad business. Next question.
Hi.
I can't read any of them. Do you want to read some of them out to me? Because I can't read any of them. You needed much bigger type. Can any of you speak?
I can come down and read them.
It's a deaf process. Well, then everyone else can't hear me. Why don't you come?
My queer friend needs a safe space.
Your queer friend needs what, from me? I'll take a moment to tell you how ridiculous you are. There's no such thing as dangerous speech. Opinions that differ from yours do not represent a threat to student safety. If you are such a delicate wallflower that you cannot cope with a gay person who has a different political opinion from you, you should just drop out because you're going to make nothing of your life. You will contribute nothing to the economy, you will contribute nothing to the people around you in your life, and you will be basically ineffective and incapable of ever interrogating an argument or producing anything in your life. If this set of opinions I'll go along with that. Madam, fuck your safe space. This is a university. It is not your home. You are not here to feel good. You are not here to be protected. You are here to be exposed to things you don't like and to think about them and to work out where your positions are afterwards. Nothing I say is endangering anybody, nor is anybody else that you protest against. This is ridiculous, attention-seeking nonsense. You should be ashamed of yourself and you should quit university. At least these ones were literate. There's no evidence the previous ones were, and they are at least quiet enough that they are avoiding giving any more money to my privilege grant. So we'll leave them over in the corner to fester. I'm sorry, could we return to the question?
Hi, so I'm going to preface this with 2 quick things. First of all, I also like facts, so I'm looking for a factual answer to a claim you made previously, which I happen to agree with. In addition, since this is a free speech event, I feel really great about saying this right now. I also feel like it's really important that you explain this with facts for all of the people in the audience that I see wearing Trump hats, and other people who are clapping and yelling and cheering for the things that I think are frankly quite uneducated that a lot of people are saying. Okay. So, for these people who need to have this explained to, why is the wage gap between women and men not real? Because I have seen the facts myself, and I know that's true, but I'd like to explain it.
Well, there's a two-part question. The first part of the question is it's quite straightforward to explain, really. You can only really believe in the wage gap if you have sort of maths at the level of a first grader or a feminist, which, but I repeat myself. If you take all of the money that men earn and all of the money that women earn, and you do a simple division, you'll arrive at something like 75, 70 cents, 79 cents a dollar. This is sort of ignorant, babyish economics of the kind that no reputable scholar would take seriously, because it doesn't take into account crucial factors that are relevant to this discussion. For instance, women make different choices. Women make different choices in their majors. If women want to earn more money, then more of them should graduate in engineering. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. If you believe that women are prevented by some mysterious patriarchal force from succeeding in physics and maths, you have to explain why they're not prevented from succeeding in veterinary medicine and biology, where they dominate. It simply isn't true. And there are many other things as well. I mean, biology, for God's sake. Men pay way more into the tax system and take way less out, in part because of babies. Now, as a nice person, I'm perfectly happy to subsidise your pregnancies, even though I don't really care about it, because I don't want to have sex with you and I don't want your children. But I'm happy to do it because I'm a nice person. But the fact is that men subsidise all sorts of things for women who live longer, get sick more, and have babies. And all of these relevant factors close the wage gap down to nothing, and in fact, flip it slightly the other way. And if you do a little bit more work than feminists and credulous, idiotic journalists, which is to say 97% of them will do, you discover that actually it's slightly more expensive to be a man. Is there a second half to your question?
I just wanted you to explain, because I think a lot of people will make wrong assumptions, because I think a lot of the people in the audience right now don't think about facts very much.
I agree with you, Susan. Thank you very much. You know what? There's good news, ladies, because the pendulum has swung so far in the other direction that if you are a STEM graduate, if you pull your finger out and, as Christina Hoff Sommers would put it, change your major from feminist dance therapy to engineering, you will discover that there is a 2-to-1 advantage just for being a girl when you go to get jobs, when you apply in STEM, in academic STEM fields. You want to be a professor, you are twice as likely to get the job just because you've got tits. Great news. I would encourage everyone in the audience to change their major to engineering, philosophy, astrophysics. The ball is in your court, ladies. If you want to earn more money, the power is yours.
Milo, I love you, and Opie and Anthony, my man. But anyway, my question, I'm going to preface it as well. I am a conservative who just recently graduated from the awful Pitt School of Social Work program, and for 3 years I was silenced by professors and condemned by other peers because I had a different opinion than all of them.
Yes.
What is your recommendation for someone like me going through an extremely liberal environment like that? Because for me, everybody else is an idiot community organizer right now, making $10 an hour doing nothing. I'm making 6 figures, and I figure cream rises too.
You have sort of answered your own question, because of course the best revenge is your own success. And to excel when others want to tear you down is precisely what they don't want. Remember that social justice is the domain of the mediocre. People asking for safe spaces and trigger warnings do so because they cannot operate on a level playing field of ideas. They cannot survive in the marketplace on their own, so they need special pleading. They require you to give them special dispensation, otherwise they simply can't function. feminists, Black Lives Matter protesters, and various other people act the way they do out of a deep sense of insecurity about themselves. Your best bet is to keep your head down at university, get good grades, and excel in life. Because the one thing they don't want you to do is have a great car, a hot wife, 2 kids, and 4 holidays a year. So go do that. Sounds like you are, so well done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the question.
Hi, Daddy. Hi, Daddy. How are you?
Everybody's daddy to someone. Many people are daddy to me.
Last night, Lady Gaga, who has made her fortune off of pandering to homosexuals and feminists, she lied in front of 80 million people saying 1 in 5 women will be raped on a college campus.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on how much bullshit that is, please?
Lady Gaga, in addition to being an untalented plagiarist, is also a liar and an idiot. Lady Gaga is repeating statistics that do not bear scrutiny. I think it's, no, I got corrected on this, it's not Dan Hannon, who is it? It's somebody else. It's Douglas Murray, one of my British colleagues, who says that the left has a supply and demand problem with bigotry. I think this is true. They don't have enough bigots to go around, so they have to create new ones to justify their own whinging. So, for instance, on stuff like these sexual assault statistics, they don't have enough of them, so they widen the definition of sexual assault to include, touching boobs or, an unwanted kiss. I mean, this is just normal human sexuality. And yet it's being criminalised and only ever in one direction, it's always the boys. Lady Gaga is not alone in the sort of progressive elite in spreading this stuff. So does Obama, so do most other people. They're all wrong, and they all know they're wrong, and they do it anyway. They do it because they're liars, and they do it because their primary purpose is to advertise their own moral virtue, not to tell you the truth about how the world really is. I think if you want to know how the world really is, you're a bit stuck at the moment, and there aren't many of us telling you. To do what various celebrities at the Oscars did this week and tell a succession of racially and sexually charged lies to a global audience is a height of irresponsibility and shows just how lazy progressives have got. They think they can get away with anything. They think they can say anything, which is why the new student movement against this stuff, the cultural libertarian movement, the fact that so many college Republicans are inviting people like me, Christina Hoff Sommers, you name it, is very exciting, because it suggests that there is a generation that has woken up to this shit. Lady Gaga has made a career out of lying. She and pandering to gays, as you correctly say. The Born This Way song is based on a lie invented by the gay lobby in the 80s to get around the religious right. There's no basis in science to suppose that gay people are born that way. In fact, it might be mostly nurtured, according to Steven Pinker. But it was invented because the religious lobby was saying homosexuality is a sinful lifestyle choice. So the gay lobby thought, what do we do about that? I know, why don't we say we're like blacks or women, we were born this way, and then they can't get us, then it's just them being sexist, sort-ish. And it's a lie, there's no basis in science for it whatsoever, and she of course made a whole song about it. Don't expect intellectual integrity from celebrities, is the bottom line there. Anybody else?
Hi.
Hello.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why so much hatred against feminists? And for the record, I don't think you're worth protesting against, but by all means, keep entertaining us.
Well, I mean, I think it's remarkable that some people think I am, when all I really do is make a few bad jokes and share some facts. I think the reason I don't like feminism is because the most important thing in our society, and what Japan's got so wrong, is the relationship between men. Can't succeed, people can't flourish, people can't be happy when one gender is telling lies about the other, telling lies to the other. Now, feminists have bred an entire generation of women who have been told lies. They've been told they can look like Lena Dunham, hideous, monstrous, fat, quivering horror shows, and they can still be happy. That's a lie. No woman will be happy that way. They've been told a variety of untrue things which are ripping men and women apart, and I quite like men and women to get on. I care about men, I care about women, and the biggest risk to intersex, that's not part of them. The greatest risk to happiness between the genders is feminism, which is why I rail against it, because it is evil and terrible, and although it has some great accomplishments in the past, it's no longer necessary and concerns itself now with man man-hating instead of equality. And I think to accuse me of hatred toward feminism as one guy who dares to stand up against the marauding hordes of paradins is a bit rich when you consider that progressive publications don't just tolerate but applaud women saying things like "kill all white men," "I bathe in male tears," "masculinity so fragile." This stuff is appalling, thinly veiled misandry, and to accuse one gay guy who, because he doesn't want to fuck women anyway, has got license to call them out on their bullshit as being hateful, frankly, madam, is a bit rich.
My question is, what would it take to offend you?
That guy nearly did it with the Burning Man. No, Anne used to say that she, well, she said it once, that she wasn't born with the fear gene, when people asked her why she was sort of so fearless and why. I mean, conservative women get so much shit. I mean, conservative women have a way worse time than I do. They get called the most appalling names by progressives, who are, of course, the most spiteful people in the world. And you don't want to be Palin, Thatcher when she was alive, anybody like that. The stuff that these women get is atrocious. And she used to say she wasn't born with the fear gene. Well, I wasn't born with the offence gene. I don't know what that feeling, I don't really know what it means. When somebody says I'm offended, I just sort of glaze over. It's a sort of meaningless expression. I just interpret it as a slimy debate tactic designed to pull you away from the facts. That's all I know it means.
I just had a personal, I mean, a lot of the things that you said, I just personally don't agree with. But I think a lot of...
Which facts don't you agree with?
I mean, I don't know where to start, but one thing I really just want to make the point of is that I think there is a difference between free speech and hate speech. I think a lot of what you talk about...
Okay, well, we can address that if you like. Well, I think the definition of hate speech, if it exists at all, if there is such a thing, has to be restricted to people who actually want to hurt you. If what you're ultimately saying is you're not very nice, no, I'm not. But I'll tell you why. Free speech is all very well and good, but mediocre opinions are sort of irrelevant. They don't change the discussion. It is specifically offensive speech that is an engine of progress, and not just of progress, but of progressive progress. It is offensive speech, speech that offends the establishment, speech that offends people in power, that got gay marriage, the vote for women, ended slavery. This was a product of offensive speech. And if, you know, the worst that you have is some gay guy saying he doesn't like feminism, it doesn't seem to me like you have much of a problem on your hands. But it is very important, specifically, for us to defend offensive free speech, and not just regular free speech. Because in those countries where you are allowed to say what you want to who you want, and in particular about, as you see it, the establishment, we don't kill each other over politics. In those countries where people are scared to say what they mean, and scared to share facts, and scared to speak out and speak up, people kill each other over politics. We don't do that in America because you have people like me being dickheads on stage. And that's the function that we perform in a free speech society. It's very important that we do.
Yeah.
I think if I were to come up here and say, you know, the reverse of any progressive position, they say regularly and triumphantly and horribly on social media, kill all white men. If I were to come up here and say, kill all black women, you might consider that hate speech, but I'm guessing that kill all white men probably are right by you. So, you know, I would have the hate speech bar way higher than either of those statements, because they're obviously just idiotic phrases spoken by morons. But if you're going to show up to a lecture accusing somebody of hate speech, you better have an example, sir.
You're a fucking Nazi! This is the Iron Cross!
All right, simmer down. I think the officers are going to deal with that one. Thank you, Johnny. so you can come and see me later. Oh, I think that's another $100 for Trump, isn't it? For those nitpicky social justice warriors in the audience who are furiously penning blog posts on their phone about campaign finance law, obviously I am a British citizen, so I will be sure to take a friend of mine out for a lavish supper, and he may subsequently accidentally make a donation of a similar amount. So you can save your breath. All right, anybody else?
I'll donate.
What's that?
I'll donate.
Perfect. Well, we're a big happy family of Trump.
So earlier today, you talked to the issue of an even playing field, and you said that women or sexual assault survivors who are asking for safe spaces ought to quit university.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what are tangible ways that people in that position can get back on an even playing field?
Well, what the research suggests is that exposure, not avoidance, is the best way to deal with trauma. Now, it's not for anybody but us to instruct people who have gone through bad things to how they're best to come to terms with what's happened to them in the past. Certainly, what seems to be the best idea is that, rather than creating so-called safe spaces, which are more often than not political tools, they're not really there to protect anybody from anything serious. Rather than creating these safe spaces which have unintended and unfortunate political consequences, it might be better for people who have unfortunate things happen to them to take a year or two or more out of college. I don't know of a university in this country that wouldn't be happy with somebody taking a year or two off if something like that happened to them, if it really did. And in many cases, a lot of this safe space culture is driven by some of the most mendacious and dishonest people on campus, and very often their claims do not stand up to scrutiny. I'm thinking of Duke Lacrosse, I'm thinking of UVA, I'm thinking of Emma Solkowitz at Columbia. Much of this culture is driven by liars, and they do a horrible disservice to people who genuinely have suffered. And those people who genuinely have suffered deserve our sympathy and our support and our help, but safe spaces, what all of the brain science and all of the sociology tells us, are the exact opposite of what they need.
Someone got raped, they should expose themselves to that place again and risk themselves getting raped again, is what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what's that's the sort of brilliantly incisive interpretation of a perfectly plain statement you can expect from progressive left. Any more questions?
You're a disease to society!
That's not a question. Do you have a question? Why are you such a disease to society? That would be a question. That would be a question.
Yeah. Hi. I have to do this quickly for my friends back home. The douche canoes say hello and thank you to our fearless leader.
Thank you.
Now, I have a really interesting question because you haven't touched on this at all, but yet, a little bit of background. I've been following you for about 3 to 4 years now, ever since you first started. Not that. Don't worry. I don't shoot that way.
Sort of following, not following.
Not
following. Yeah.
But I think if looks could kill, you'd probably be, 6 feet under by now. Anyways, I know that you are a diehard Catholic, which really interests me, because I'm quite religious myself. I believe in God, and I'm a Catholic myself. What sort of geared you to stay in touch with the Catholic Church, even though you encountered a bunch of hate from the present left?
Yeah.
That, gay people shouldn't be religious.
Yeah, there's some idiotic demand for complete intellectual consistency from people who don't really understand what consistency means or looks like, and who are happy to describe themselves as genderqueer, demi-kin, whatever. But if you're a gay Catholic, that's apparently weird. I mean, I don't like to debate religion at the moment because it's not, ultimately involves a leap of faith. It's not something that you can talk about like the wage gap. I would say that I can make a few observations. One is that I've never encountered as much dreadful hatred from people as from other homosexuals about my faith and about my politics, which tells its own story. I also think the Catholic Church, despite what you may hear and what you may read, has in actual fact been a harbour for gay people for hundreds of years. In many cases, way ahead of the societies in which it operated, where you could get lynched or killed by the state or by other people. You had another option, which was join clergy. It wasn't perfect, but they'd keep you safe. There are many things that most people don't think of, and I think anybody with experience with religion understands that, we are all messy and complicated and imperfect. It is a church for sinners, not for perfect people, otherwise we wouldn't need the church. And that, well, in the words of Evelyn Waugh, who was, of course, brilliant in writing all these subjects, if you think it's weird that I'm a Catholic, imagine how much worse I'd be without God.
Hello. Yeah. So tonight you were saying that everyone has a right to say whatever basically that they want to say.
Yes.
But a lot of the times when some people here did not agree with most of your views, you were quick to kind of reprimand them and disrespect them and call them stupid and a lot of other names. Why do you think that it's okay for you to do that and not okay for us to have an opinion that is basically the opposite of yours without you giving input back that is completely negative?
So you want to be able to have a wrong opinion and not be contradicted? You want to be able to have a wrong opinion and it not
why
be
contradicted? Why is our opinion considered wrong and you're considered right when you just said that?
Well, because if you disagree with me, chances are you're wrong on the facts.
Okay, so that's all right. I haven't heard any numbers from you except for, oh, I'm going to donate $200, $500 to the whatever fund I've been trying to have. If you decide to give me, maybe I'll listen in on what you have to say, but as of now, you sound like an idiot. Thank you very much.
I didn't hear a question. I mean, this is typical, of somebody who doesn't. I mean, I think what I heard there was, why are we not allowed to be wrong and you not call us on it? I think that tells its own story. I think I didn't hear a question at the end. Should we go to the next one? You're welcome to say what you want, but now you're interrupting. You're being discourteous to the rest of the room, and I'm adding another $200. You're just getting more money to Daddy, Alright, I can't hear any of that babble. Should we move on?
Yes, Milo.
Thanks.
Hey. So, I mean, I agree with you that it's problematic if it depends more who you are than the content of what you're saying, but I'm wondering, how did you come to the conclusion that saying, like, exceptionally provocative things is the best way to facilitate logical discourse?
Yeah, I understand the question. Well, I'm not the only person in the world, and many people play different roles in whether it's the free speech movement, the cultural libertarian movement. There are some very respectable academics who come with, calm, classy, fact-led approaches, but sometimes you need somebody to blow open the fire doors. Sometimes you need somebody to be the shock troops, particularly in an era when lies are so embedded and so widespread that the only way you can get a hearing is to be outrageous. And it's part of what I was talking about earlier, the essential importance of offensive free speech to attract attention to points of view that are not given a hearing or that are even punished. There are points of view, I mean, I'm not a men's rights activist, but frankly, they're right about most stuff. And those views are actively punished. They're punished in the workplace, they're punished in the media, they're punished by girlfriends who have internalized this, feminist nonsense. Where that's the case, not to overuse the Orwell, is it Orwell? I think it is. In times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. I wouldn't compliment myself by calling myself a revolutionary. I'm effectively a glorified shitposter. I'm sort of smarter than most. But sometimes you need that, particularly when everybody else is lying.
So you tweeted some things today. First said that the KKK is an anachronism. I looked up some facts because that's what people do. And there are 5,000, 8,000 active members. There's the Andrew Show, targeted at children, which is actively recruiting children. It was a Grand Duke's grandchild who has an online show on YouTube addressing KKK interest. I don't really know. But and then according to the Anti-Defamation League, 8 cross burnings took place in December 2014. That's 1 month alone. I personally am from North Carolina, and I have a chapter of the KKK that lives a mile away from my house. Also, you said that the Black Lives Matter leaders are lying about cops, but the Washington Post reported on September 14, 2015, that black men 15 to 19 are 20 times more likely to be killed by police than white males in this age range, and overall, black males are 7 times more likely to be killed by police. You said that women lie about men, but RAINN published statistics that 1 out of every 6 American women have been victim of rape just reported. This comes to 17.7 million women. 9 out of every 10 rape victims are women. And according to the Huffington Post, by age 59, a woman would have lost $800,000 from the wage gap. Women are more likely to earn a college degree, but 59% more likely to earn a low wage. I just have a question about why you're not addressing actual facts. Where are your actual numbers? This was a simple Google search after my class for 45 minutes. I found facts in 45 minutes. You do this for a career and you cannot name a single number. Where are they?
Difficult to know where to start with some of that stuff, but it's very easy when you just spew out a list of numbers about black people killed by cops. I think we all know who kills black people in America, and that's other black people. You don't like to hear it, but the #1 killer of black men in this country is other black men.
And the #1 killer of black men is white men. Black on black crime is a myth. Every race kills every race.
Black on black crime is a myth. Switch with the realms of fantasy now.
You do this for a career, but you have no facts.
52% murders? Please give a chance to respond. I'm sorry, I don't get a chance to respond.
If you want to talk about statistics, you can talk about the fact that although blacks only make up 12% of the population, they're over half of murderers. I mean, there are lots of unpleasant things that you can sort of spew out in a list if you want. Right, we've always got a conspiracy theory to explain it.
No, you have not.
Let's.
Because people are agreeing with you and yelling and talking to people. These are your fellow imbeciles, okay?
Let me address one thing. Let me address one thing, because I can tell that you're not going to be satisfied by us drilling down any particular issue. While I certainly think that feminism is an overblown crock of shit, I don't take that view entirely. In fact, I don't take that view at all about black people in America. There are huge questions to answer, huge valid grievances that black people have. The legacy of slavery is still with us. Race is a tragic and toxic issue in America. Nobody is going to deny that. Nobody does deny that. All I say on this subject is that Black Lives Matter isn't the answer because it is divisive and hateful. It turns black communities on themselves. It prefers to yell than discuss. The ultimate effect of Black Lives Matter is black communities in flames. That is what Black Lives Matter produces. What are the other things that Black Lives Matter wants? Well, it wants segregated dorms. So did the KKK. It stokes racial tensions and hatred. So does the KKK. Many things that Black Lives Matter want look remarkably like the KKK. Why? Because it is ultimately a black supremacist movement, not an equality movement. And it has that flaw in common with feminism. It is not about equality. The great myth that we have all swallowed because the newspapers liked him more is that Martin Luther King won. He didn't. Malcolm X did, and this is the result. Next question, please.
Okay. I'm just asking for clarification.
Sure.
So in terms of talking, I really would like for people not to take my picture. I don't consent to that. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Okay, sure. No, I'm just asking for clarification in terms of the idea of offensive speech, which I completely agree with you in the fact that we would not have many of the things that we do today if it were not for the fact that a lot of the things that the majority of people find offensive were brought up in terms of gay marriage. Absolutely agree with you.
You have a question?
But I do have a question. So I'm wondering, I just want you to clarify that I would think you believe that the superstructure that is created in terms of violence is not supported by speech that is targeted towards marginalized communities. That is the transgender community, so people of color. I would think from what you're telling me that you do not believe that offensive speech in that sense sort of supports this superstructure of violence.
No, I don't. I don't think that cracking jokes or being rude about people or speaking about facts leads to violence or hurts people. There are obviously instances of sexism and racism, and there are incitements to violence. Incitement to violence is illegal, rightly, and it is an ugly thing, and bigotry is an ugly thing. What I certainly don't believe is that we have a rape culture that starts with comments about boobs and ends up with sexual assault. I don't think that exists on the spectrum, no sir. And I don't think that jokes in what we call on the internet, as I said, hate facts, result in violence. There are specific calls to violence. They're a completely different class of speech, and they are illegal, and they should be.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I have another question for you over here.
Hi, sorry, I haven't quite spectacles on.
Hello. I just have one very simple question for you.
Yes.
You spoke a lot tonight about free speech. I'd just like you to recite the exceptions to free speech that are not covered by the First Amendment. And I wonder if you would consider all that you said tonight as fighting words that would incite violence. If anything you said tonight, you would consider it as such, because that is not covered
No, I
by the
don't
First
think that
Amendment as free speech.
I don't
They're
think...
fighting words, and I would like to quote, are defined as insults of the kind likely to provoke a physical fight, and may also be punished through general commentary on political, religious, or social matters. These may not be punished, but from what I've heard here tonight, a lot of these words are hateful. And though you may say that these actions or these words that people are saying do not directly lead to actions, they do certainly have an effect. So I'd like to know, do you think you're speaking fighting words? Do you think the speech you're using right now are considered fighting words?
No, I don't think there's such a thing as violent words.
Can you explain to me why that's so?
Yes, because I don't see any causal link between... Sorry. As the young lady's asked me to explain, free speech does have limits. And its limits include, incitement to violence, terrorism, and various other horrible things that we don't want. But my primary purpose in these talks is to impress upon people that I want the full limit of cultural and intellectual history to be available and open for discussion. That isn't happening in universities. You misunderstand me if you think that I'm fighting for somebody's right to say something outright sexist, bigoted. I don't believe that. As anyone who knows my dating history will know, it looks like a Benetton catalogue. I practice what I preach as far as that goes. I'm the least racist person that I know. But I don't think that precludes me from making jokes. I don't think that precludes me from making jokes, and I don't think those jokes exist on a spectrum that leads up to interracial violence. No, I think what does lead to interracial violence is the sort of nonsense peddled by Black Lives Matter. Time to do a couple more questions, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Yiannopoulos, for coming in. And first off, I am going to be graduating from law school in May, taking the bar exam in July. And free speech, as described by the people here today, is not free speech. Hate speech is a type of free speech. We may not like it, but we use it.
Let's be protected repeatedly by the Supreme Court.
Yes, absolutely. And my question for you is, throughout the historical lens, we think of feminism with some very great accomplishments through Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. Today, that is obviously not the case. So what would you define to be feminism as of 2016?
Well, feminism, in its most respectable forms, has all but died. It's been replaced by an ugly, sexist, misandrist, lesbianic sort of grievance mongering. That doesn't really have anything to do with equality, and it's more really just about hating men, but it's also part of a more general and very bizarre, self-loathing, middle-class, white progressive nexus that, which is why you sort of hear this sort of kill all white men, not just kill all men. It basically stems from a particular slice of the population, the kinds of people who work at, in newspapers and in universities, who, are sort of imbued with this colonial guilt crap. The rest of the world is fucking lucky we were there, frankly. Anywhere that Britain went for a start is a nicer place to live as a result. I think feminism today has become a sort of institutionalized and legally mandated man-hating. And it is propagated by people who don't like men very much. And it really has nothing to do whatsoever with empowering or liberating women, as the great, brilliant feminists of the past were concerned with. And some of those women are my heroes. No current feminists are in my league of heroes.
Okay, so earlier you pointed out a lot of bullshit facts comparing the KKK to black people for some reason. And I wanted to
black people. So
yes, they're melanated people. So I had a question for you.
No, if you're going to try to,
I believe even if
something, you need to be right
I'd like you to pull up some facts real quick about how white people or how black people are compared to the KKK. You mentioned how the black people needed a safe space, which was obviously to prevent them from harm from the white people. You've also tonight have like to mention and promote white males as some type of targeted audience, when in fact white people have dominated the world since the beginning of history.
Well, we invented all the good shit.
Well, actually, most of black people.
I mean, if you don't like white people so much, can I have your iPhone, please?
I actually don't use an iPhone, but thank you very much. But for instance, I like to bring up the slavery fact that blacks built America pretty much. So
I don't disagree with you on that, sir. I don't disagree with you that there's a race problem in America. I don't disagree with you that black people are owed something. I think they are. I'm just not sure that Black Lives Matter is the answer. It seems to me to be very destructive and to hurt black people the most.
So what is your disdain with the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, for one, it seems to be run by charlatans. For two, I'm very suspicious about where a lot of its funding comes from. And three, I've seen the results of it. They want segregation. It ends with black communities in flames. The results of Black Lives Matter are there for all to see. They're a disaster.
All right, one more question. You talk about how the Black Lives Matter movement is run by charlatans, but yet you promote Donald Trump. What's up with that?
I mean, look at some of the social justice's favourite black figureheads in America. Well, two of them are white for a start. Rachel Dolezal and Sean King. I mean, Sean King, one of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, isn't even black. He lied about his own race for decades. We've got these weirdos who are funded by George Soros who show up in new cities to stoke dissent, lying about cops, stoking problems that end up, with black people just burning their own cities. I mean, this stuff is horrible. It takes such a degree of sociopath to gin up black communities, to destroy themselves. I think it's very clear. You look at any of the Black Lives Matter movement leaders. These are not people who can be trusted to, tell you how to tie a shoelace, let alone what a racial justice movement in America should look like in 2016. I don't know what the answers are because liberals won't let us find out, and blacks won't vote in any conservatives. I mean, the only time that black lives were saved in any significant numbers was when Rudy Giuliani was in power. Because he policed properly. But blacks consistently vote in Democrats and their communities keep getting worse. If you want things to improve for blacks in America, it might be time to try Republicans. This president has done nothing for me. Racial politics and race in America is far worse than it was 8 years ago. This president has done nothing for you. None of the mayors of the towns that black people elect have done anything for blacks either. It's been a disaster. Try Republicans.
Hello, I'm over here.
Sorry, who are you?
Hi, my name's Claire. I'm one of the people who was quietly holding signs.
Oh,
Yeah, I can read, I'm gonna read you the signs, and then I do have a question for you. Okay, so the first sign is my friends who have self-harmed need a safe space. So this is friends who have been suicidal, who have hurt themselves, who have cut themselves, who have burned themselves.
What do they need a safe space from?
I'm gonna read the 40.
They need a safe space themselves.
My friends who experience racism daily need a safe space. My friends who have survived abuse need a safe space. This can be abuse from parents, from family members, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse.
What's the question?
I'll get there in a moment. I'm gonna ask you to bear with me just for a moment. The fourth one is my friends who have been sexually assaulted need a safe space. And so that's what I'm gonna rest on for a moment. And it's
very sinister, isn't it? It's very sinister.
That's right. These are really tough things. These are really tough topics. So I'd like to rest on that one, and I'd actually like to imagine that you're not speaking to me, but to a woman who the night before has been raped. She's been raped. I've walked her to the emergency room at McGee. She's gotten a rape kit done. I walk her home to her dorm. She is barely able to speak. She's crying. She can't stay alone in her dorm. She needs someone to stay in her dorm with her that night. It's an extremely emotional, traumatic experience. I'm not going to assume that you haven't experienced it. I'm not going to assume that a lot of people in this room haven't experienced it. I know people in this room have. And I would love for you to imagine that you're speaking to this woman who has just come home. And I'd like to ask you to tell her why the next day when she walks into class, she doesn't deserve to be warned before being reminded of the event that has just happened to her. She doesn't deserve to have just any basic consideration in that space for what she may have experienced. Yeah, I'm asking you to describe to her face sitting in her dorm room, why she does not deserve that safe space the next day when she walks into class.
I will save you the amateur dramatics. I have a vivid imagination, but I'm going to spare you the fantasizing. What I will say is, as a friend, I would be advising her to go home. If you've been raped at college, the last place you should be immediately afterwards is college. I don't. Certainly the rape victims that I've known haven't been in class the next day. They haven't been in class for quite some time afterwards. The best advice that you can give her is to go home to her family.
She doesn't have a family.
Sorry? There is no safe space on campus. The function of this place is not a home. It is not here to provide those services for you. It is here to educate you. And if for whatever reason, whether something good or something bad happens that means that you are not able to be instructed in whatever subject you have been enrolled to study, then you need to take some time out. Now, whether you've had a terrible situation happen to you, or whether you had something nice happen to you, like you won the lottery. Oh, I dropped out twice.
Milo, go get it.
Milo.
Don't get your boss.
Milo, you don't have a college degree, right? Milo, you don't have a college degree, right?
No, I don't.
How much money do you make?
A lot. I believe that the market rewards talent, hard work, and ingenuity. And I'm relatively willing to bet that I earn more in a year than this entire standing group will through their entire lives. If you have something to offer the world, whether or not you get a piece of paper, you can go out, offer it to the world, and the world will pay you a fair market rate for it. If you don't, you stand up with pieces of paper. Any other questions?
Milo, let me say, I heard you were accused of being a Nazi before, and as a Jew, thank you for being the nicest Nazi I've ever
There's only one kind of camp I endorse, and it's what gave me this hair.
So I've actually got a two-part question. I know you've got a few of those tonight, so I'm sorry for belaboring this. The first one is, I am actually a PhD student. I'm actually going to row a few math PhDs as well. We're future academics. We're conservative, as you might imagine, and thankfully being in STEM, we're not really in danger of having any of the protesters in our classes.
For those of you on this side of the room, he's saying you're dumb. I'm explaining that because you're dumb. Sorry, sir, carry on.
So my first question is, how would you suggest I and my friends here as future academics actually sort of combat the bias? And the second question I have is, I'd like you to imagine for a second, and I'm looking up this statistic right now. Now, grant you, this is not a causal study, but the number of people who drowned by falling into a pool correlates with films Nicolas Cage appeared in. Why do we not all deserve a safe space from Nicolas Cage?
Sadly, sir, you hit upon one of my exceptions to the safe space rule. I believe we are all entitled to a safe space from Nicolas Cage. The best thing you can do as academics, well, I think the best thing you can probably do is wait a little bit before getting too bolshy about it. I'll tell you one thing. I've spoken to college Republicans, Young America, the YAL, YAF people. The Fs don't like me very much, they're the Republicans, but the Ls do, they're the Libertarians. The Fs refuse to engage in any of my talks, but the Ls are good. I would say, sir, that there is a revolution brewing, at least. It's not happening yet, but it is brewing on campuses, and it is the most colossal pushback against the social justice crap. And it is gaining steam. It is gaining steam, and we know this because more speakers like me are being invited all the time, but not just people like me, but serious academics too, who step off reservation, whether it's Camille Paleo or Christina Hoff Summers. I think we know this because the reaction to most of the social justice stuff on campus is now widespread open ridicule, whether it's on Yap or in comment sections. I think we know that students are smarter than this. Students know they're not getting their money's worth. They know the faculty is failing them. Your professors here, in many cases, are failing you. And as young people become increasingly aware of their status as consumers, because they pay so much for this education, they're going to start demanding more and demanding better. And they're also going to start demanding that resources that ought to be spent on their education are not squandered on crybabies demanding trigger warnings. I would advise you to keep your head down for a bit, but by the time you are looking for tenure, I think the atmosphere, or actually I hope the atmosphere on campuses will be somewhat different.
We have time for one more question.
I didn't hear that one, huh?
Okay. No, I'm going to talk because other people aren't talking right now. So, Dave Rubin just started working up with the Gadfather and the Chilean. It's breaking into the mainstream, this revolution that you're talking about, 2016, as the end of the regressive left.
Yes,
what do we take as precautions to stop ourselves from becoming as mad as the progressives that have come before us?
Right, that's a good question. I think what's traditionally gone wrong, whether it's with conservatives or liberals or any other movement, what's traditionally gone wrong is when people get into positions of power, they get lazy. And when you're in power, you don't have a vested interest in free speech. When you're in power, you have a vested interest in shutting free speech down. You want people to say less, not more. When you are trying to fight for a change, you obviously want as many different points of view as possible. One of the things that the right got wrong in the 80s and 90s was getting too lazy, smug, haughty, and cruel. And one of the things the left is getting wrong now is being too lazy, smug, haughty, and cruel. And I think the smartest thing to do is to remain intellectually humble, to remind yourself the importance of different points of view, to remind yourself that opinions are only really significant if they can be defended in an open and free marketplace of ideas. And that means no language policing. It means no banging on about mansplaining. It means no safe spaces and trigger warnings. It means robust exchange of ideas in atmospheres like this, with teachers who are prepared to read themselves about those ideas firstly, and then expose you to them. And it means, as an individual who doesn't want to kind kind of get taken over by craziness, to remind yourself to have respect for the other side. One of the things the left does very badly is have respect for conservatives. They characterize us as evil, as selfish, as bigots, as racist, homophobe, misogynistic, transphobe. These are words they use to shut us up because they don't have an argument. I think to remain humble and to keep respect. I have respect for people I don't agree with. I think they're dumb, and I will call them dumb, and I will laugh at them. I respect their right to be wrong. I would wish they weren't wrong. But what I would never do, as they would want to do to me, in many cases, I'm not accusing any of you people, but as in pretty much everywhere else I've ever spoken, what I would never do is deny their right to assemble. I would never deny their right to use the language they want. I'm perfectly free to criticise it, by the way. I don't like kill all white men, and I'll say so, but I'm not going to put people in prison for saying it. And I'm not going to punish people for saying it. What I would like them to do is, obviously, be right and be more sensible, but they're entitled to do and say and think as they please. And so long as we respect our intellectual adversaries, and as long as we are clear on that point, I think we will... Does that feel the burn? Well, you see, every bone in my body wants to have you thrown out. But because I'm such a free speech fundamentalist, you are welcome. I think the important thing is to us to respect our adversaries enough to give them the right to shout out ridiculous things like that. People are often very nice after these talks and want to come and do photos and say hi, and I would love to get around to everybody, and I will spend as long as it takes, but I'm desperate for a slash. Hello everyone.
My name is Timothy Rose. I'm the president of the College Republicans. I'd like to thank you for today's lecture, Free Speech in Crisis by Milo Yiannopoulos. I'd also like to thank several people for helping us put this on really quickly. The Intercollegiate Studies Institute helped fund our wonderful security staff that is surrounding the room. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Chornick in the Wilmington Union office. She helped us get through all the paperwork that went into this. It was a really big hassle, but we managed to get it through in the end. And finally, University of Pittsburgh for ignoring all of the petty protests and finally managing to bring Milo here. Together, I would like to clarify that this is a free speech event. There will be a brief talk by Milo, followed by a Q&A session. During the Q&A session, anyone is welcome to speak. We'll be walking around with 2 microphones, and we'll just be handing it out, holding it up to people. They can ask a question to Milo, and you can say or ask whatever you'd like. However, any heckles or outbursts during the actual presentation will not be tolerated. You will be escorted out of the room, and the Pitt College Republicans will personally donate $5 to Milo Yiannopoulos' privilege grant. It's important to understand why we brought Milo here today. It's not that we agree with, any one specific topic that we need to bring him here for, or we agree with everything that he says, but rather it's the fact that his opinions, while controversial, deserve to be heard. And on a campus such as Pitt, with such history and esteem, we deserve to be able to say whatever we want, whenever we want, and be able to experiment with any ideas or literature or speakers that we would like. This is a college campus, and we deserve to have free speech and freedom of expression. Without further ado, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Good morning, I'm here. Thank you very much for that lukewarm welcome. I'm Milo. I am journalism's leading dangerous faggot. What that means is that though a gay man, I don't believe that the state should take 75% of my earnings and use it to fund feminist dance troupes and Black Lives Matter activism and all manner of other things that I don't like. I'm not a fan of socialised healthcare. I don't like all sorts of things that gay people are supposed to believe in order to gay properly. I don't gay properly. Now, my ex-boyfriends will tell you a slightly different story. They think I gay very well. But the progressive left, which has become a sort of menace on university campuses, think I gay very badly. One of the reasons for that is that we live in a society in which it's become quite difficult to tell the truth. We live particularly in a climate in the media and academia in this country in which what we on the internet call hate facts can get you into rather a lot of trouble. Hate facts are factual statements that somebody somewhere would rather you didn't know or rather you didn't talk about. For instance, the wage gap in bollocks, and there's no campus rape culture, which we'll get to in a minute. All right, so because some people are offended by the truth, and because I'm a natural contrarian, I've taken it upon myself to go through life as offensively as possible, on the basis that the only appropriate response to outrage culture is to be outrageous. We'll get to some of those things in a minute, but most of all what I want to talk to you about today is the resurgence of something that in the 90s your parents will remember as political correctness. And political correctness is a sort of it's a sort of lying designed to save people's feelings. And the reason it's come back is that although the argument against political correctness in the 1990s, where we sort of didn't say the truth, we stepped over the boundaries of etiquette and politeness and into sort of outright dishonesty in order to save some people's feelings. Although the argument was sort of won against political correctness, the people who believed in it still had tenure at universities, still were lecturers, and they remain in post today. There's been a resurgence of political correctness. We are now expected to lie, and most journalists will lie to you knowingly. They do it on purpose, they do it all day, they do it every day, about things that actually matter quite a lot. They lie to you about the relationship between men and women. They lie to you about statistics and stoke up racial discontent. They lie to you about all sorts of things. I'm not going to lie to you about any of those things this evening. What I am going to talk to you about are some of the risks inherent in enforcing dishonesty on people to save feelings. Now, the progressive left, which is the most powerful political force on your campus and on probably every campus, apart from perhaps Hillsdale, which sounds excellent. I haven't been to Hillsdale. Is that what is that? Are you clicking me? Is that an alternative to applause? Is that feminist clicking? Tell me, what was that?
It was snaps.
It was snaps.
Oh, snap.
Oh, it was snaps. Oh, sorry. Okay. Do you know that you're not supposed to clap anymore because apparently it triggers people? It might trigger somebody who's a victim of domestic violence. So you're not supposed to clap anymore. Some of you will know, if you have an internet connection, that I have concocted a range of alternatives to clapping, specifically for feminist conferences. So feminist jazz hands, if you don't want to upset anybody. And for a speaker you particularly like, you can use feminist pizzazz hands. Anyway, there's loads of them. All right, look. Here's the thing. What we're running up against in universities is a climate in which telling certain facts has become dangerous. And the climate that's on American universities and in Canadian universities and in British universities is spreading outside the academy into the media, because nobody has ever told these people no, and even into the legal system. Has anyone here heard of a man called Gregory Allen Elliott? A couple of people. Good. Well-educated people have heard of this man. This man was put on criminal trial in Canada for disagreeing with and mocking feminists on the internet. And that was really the extent of his crimes. He took the piss out of them, as anybody with half a brain and a sense of humour would, because they're ridiculous. And he was put on criminal trial in Canada because that country is so far down the road of political correctness